Go ahead. Hi, everyone. It's Janine from Egg Harbor Library, and I'm here to talk about e-bikes today. In fact, we've left the library. The library's closed today because we are getting a new generator, so no electricity. So we're at Nordor in Fish Creek, and we're going to be talking e-bikes. Now, I've had my e-bike going on 3 summers, and I love it. And it's a Raleigh, as you can see. It's a good size for me. It's got a battery on the back. I'm holding the charger, so it's not a big charger. I love it. I love it on hills. And I thought this would be a good, a lot of people ask me when they see me on my bike, they ask me about it. And I thought, wow, this will be a good program. I just had 2 friends get e-bikes here at Nordor, and they love theirs. And so today we're going to talk all e-bikes. And I have a Raleigh, and I got it when I was staying with my son in Minnesota, but e-bikes are for sale here up in Fish Creek and in other places. So I am going to be talking to Stretch here at Nordor. And he's going to tell us about the e-bikes and what's all happening with them. And then I have some questions for him. And then maybe we can even get Jess, who's here. Maybe we can get Jess to test drive one. So let's go on and over to Stretch. Tell you about the e-bikes, a little overview of them, and then I have some questions that you might have too. And then you can ask some questions. So, Stretch, why don't you just look at the camera and tell us everything you know about e-bikes?
So there are 3 classifications of e-bikes. There's a class 1, class 2, class 3. The classifications were set up a few years ago, and it all originated out of the state of California. And since then, a multitude of states have adopted the class 1, class 2, class 3 classifications. The state of Wisconsin adopted it, I believe, last October in its October session.
Stop sharing screen.
October session in Madison. And basically the differences between a class 1, class 2, class 3 is that a class 1 will be a electric assist where you have to pedal the bike, 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. A class 2 is also a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, but it is a separate hand throttle where it has the ability to turn it, your wrist, and operate it without pedaling. Then there's a class 3 e-bike, which is going to be similar to class 1 where you have to pedal assist, and it's a 28-mile-an-hour bike. So with that being said, with those class 1, class 2, class 3s, there is, with this adopted statute in the state of Wisconsin along with other states, there is areas where some of these bikes are prohibited, meaning class 2 are restricted in some areas on some state and federal funded trails, along with state and federal parks. With that being said, there's also rules and regulations against e-bikes in some areas, state, federal parks, trail systems, where there's a speed limit of 15 miles an hour that is in place for restrictions against e-bikes.
So some of these bikes really get going fast then?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The 20-mile-an-hour class 1, class 2 bike will help you or assist you out to 20 miles an hour, but the bike will go faster, but it stops assisting you at 20.
Oh, okay.
For example, the 28-mile-an-hour bike will assist you out to 28. It'll go faster, but it's all you over that threshold of 28 miles an hour. With that being said, there's a multitude of states that have adopted it, and I know there's a number of other states in the United States that are looking at class 1, class 2, class 3 regulations to put in place for their states. With that being said, the other thing too to keep in mind or think about is There's two types of drive units. One of them will be a hub-based motor, and I'll just grab a bike here and kind of give you a visual of what a hub-based motor looks like. And what that means is that you will have the motor assembly drive unit in the rear hub. Generally speaking, that the motor is in the rear hub, your battery will either be mounted in a rear rack or possibly mounted somewhere in the mid part of the frame. These will generally be either class 1 or class 2 bikes. This happens to be a class 1 where you still have to pedal the bike, but it's a hub-based motor. Some of the advantages to a hub-based motor, they will be a little bit less money. The disadvantages to a hub-based motor is that there's always a little bit of resistance to that rear hub, so that when you stop pedaling, there's always going to be a little bit of resistance. It's not like the bike's going to stop dead, but it will slow the bike down.
Interesting.
The other thing too is when you go to a battery where it's mounted in the rear rack, that is very easy to get at. Batteries can be removed to either be charged or charged on the bike. The only disadvantage to that, bringing the weight of the battery up or the weight of the bike up higher, if you ever have to lean the bike over to mount the bike or step over the bike can get a little top heavy getting on. That's one of the comments that we hear here at the store.
Yeah, what's kind of the weight of that bike if you
So
pick
this
it up?
bike comes in at approximately 54 pounds.
Okay.
With the battery. The battery on this bike is about 5 pounds. So with that being said, back to that, you will have a hub-based motor where the battery is located in either the rack or the mid-mount of the bike. The other type of drive unit that you will see on some bikes are some e-kits, where they will replace the front wheel, put a motor in the front hub, and your battery will still be mounted in a rack or a bag or a cargo bag in the back. I'm not a big proponent of it. I'm a little, I've seen some problems with that because you're taking a normal bike and adding some motor to it where the bike really isn't designed to have a motor, where when you go to a hub-based motor, that is where the bike is being pulled with the hub-based motor. And a lot of times, or not a lot, but I've seen a number of cases where it's affected the fork, where the fork can't handle those forces put on a hub-based motor that pulls the bike. So if you're looking at a hub-based motor, I would recommend going to something in a rear drive unit versus retrofitting an existing bike. Also, a lot of existing bikes, what the industry has found that because of these e-bikes are obviously reaching higher speeds, more forces are put on the bike, brakes are a pretty intricate part of the bike, and a lot of bikes on the market have rim brakes where the brake is applied to the rim surface, and it's not a great brake when you start putting a motor unit. That's why you'll see pretty much all the e-bikes now have what they call disc brakes, whether they are a hydraulic, this happens to be a mechanical disc brake where there's a cable, but it is a disc brake unit to assist those braking forces to help stop the bike adequately and safely.
So I guess break it down for me now. Can you explain? So the electricity comes from here and then it goes, I guess is it powering a device right down here that essentially how does it, I've never ridden one.
Okay,
so.
Sure. So the battery is obviously mounted on a rack or there, but on this bike, because it is a rear hub motor, that's when the motor is in the rear wheel or in the rear hub.
Okay.
Some of those aftermarket kits that you buy are ones that you can get in a hub that's in the front. It's very easy to change over. You're basically taking one wheel off, putting the other wheel back on. But going back to what I was saying is that when you do that, you're putting some unique forces and stress on the bike that's not really designed for that. So I would kind of caution people to do that just because I've seen some problems. Because you're taking a bike that's not really designed to have that on there and put it on it. So unfortunately, I've had some bad experiences with customers and a couple of them got hurt.
Okay.
So I really don't recommend that for them. So that's kind of a brief overview on a hub-based motor. The other popular unit is going to be a mid-mount or crank-based motor where your motor is located in the crane. The advantages to this is that the weight of the motor is lower on the bike. So the bike is going to handle much more like a normal bike because the weight being lowered to the bike or lowered to the ground, excuse me. The other thing is this happens to be a class 1 e-bike where it only assists you while you're pedaling. So once you stop pedaling, the bike's going to glide close just like any other bike, but it's only going to assist you while you're pedaling the bike. When you stop pedaling, It's just like any other bike.
Okay.
So your class 1 and class 3 bikes are going to function just like any other bike. You're going to have normal brakes, shifter on the right side. Generally speaking, most of these are all one-by systems where there's only a sprocket, one sprocket up on the motor, and then multitude of 8, 9, 10, 11 speeds in the rear. But this is going to be a crank-based or mid-mount motor. This is kind of where all the technology is going in the industry. Your hub-based motors are probably one of the first generations of e-bikes. That was where it kind of all started, but now it's evolved into
And that's what I
hub-based.
have.
Yeah. Is
Okay.
into a mid-mount or a crank-based motor. This just happens to have the Bosch unit on it.
Okay. Oh, so it's a Trek bike with a Bosch unit on
Correct, correct. Trek bike, but they have partnered with Bosch. They have gone 100% Bosch on all of their e-bikes. And everybody knows Bosch from,
Speakers, right? No.
well, that, dishwashers, appliances. And I was also
They're
told,
quieter.
I was also told that Bosch puts on or makes 120 some parts on every automobile. So
Wow.
pretty big company based in Germany.
Wow.
So that's kind of your crank-based or mid-mount motors. There's a multitude of companies that do make that. There's Bosch, there's Shimano, Yamaha. There's another company called Fu Fang. It's kind of a Chinese or Asian company, but they're kind of an up-and-coming company in the United States. But those are kind of your big players when it comes to your hub-based motor, or excuse me, your crank-based motors or mid-mount.
Okay, so we've got hub. Just to review, we got a hub.
Yep.
Which those are typically in the back.
In the rear wheel, yes.
In the rear wheel. So you got the hub. You got the crank base right here.
Yep.
And then are we going on to a third?
Nope. So those are those two types of drive units that
Okay.
are currently out there that are offered in bikes throughout the country on the e-bikes. Now, some other things to think about or consider also is that battery size is obviously very critical. You have two types of batteries. You have an external battery where the bike is outside the frame. That's one style where it's attached to the frame. That happens to be the Bosch external, or going back to our hub-based motor, that's an external battery that is mounted in a rack. So
That's an internal then, right?
correct, I was going to get to that.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, your bikes that may be less cost or less retail price point will have an external battery, and you're going to be looking somewhere around a 300-watt battery, maybe 400-watt battery. When you get over to the Bosch and the external, they start with a 400-watt battery. What that means is that obviously the lower wattage battery has a lower capacity, so you won't get the range or mileage out of your charge.
Okay.
And as you go higher, obviously the higher wattage and so forth, you get longer distances out of that battery for each use. The other type of battery that she just brought up is we're seeing another part over the last year or two is a shift to, let me just turn this mic a bit. You can see it a little better, is an internal battery. And what that means is it actually is designed to go into the frame or sit in part of the frame so it looks more like a regular bike. So it doesn't look kind of like an e-bike like that.
I
So
see.
that's kind of another part of the industry where the majority of the industry is going, is to these internal batteries where they are tucked inside the frame, a little bit sleeker, a little bit cleaner looking. They don't look like an e-bike, they look more like a traditional bike. Just a brief overview on those internal batteries. Pretty much all these batteries on e-bikes that you are looking at or purchase, you can either remove the battery to charge them or charge them on the fly. For example, this internal battery, so kind of the way it works is you put the key on the lock core on the other side, turn it a quarter turn, you hit the release, and out comes the battery. And you can remove the battery to transport it either on your car, which is a conversation we should maybe also have about transporting e-bikes, is to remove the bike, the internal battery, because this is a little bit larger battery. This is a 500-watt battery, where that's a 300, that's a 400-watt battery. This is a 500-watt battery, is also available in a 625-watt. A little bit bigger capacity.
And weight on it.
So this battery is going to be a little bit heavier.
It's heavier.
This is going to come in, because it's the internal battery, larger capacity is going to come in a little bit over 6 pounds.
Okay.
Where you go to the external battery, this comes in at, I believe, about 5.4 pounds. On the
Okay.
external. External batteries you can either buy in a 400-watt system or a 500-watt system in the Bosch. This, when you go to the internal system, this is what Trek calls is their RIB, R-I-B, RIB battery, where they build their own case, tucks into the frame real nice. but still uses the Bosch battery inside of here. Is offered in either a 500-watt battery or a 625.
How long approximately do the batteries last? Like, you know, when are you going to have to go ahead and buy a new battery?
Okay, so two things when it comes to batteries. Life on a battery, Bosch is telling us currently in excess of 500 charge cycles. The nice thing about the Bosch system is that it has diagnostic tools that we can plug the bike in, and we can do some research and see what's going on with the battery, the bike, and the computer. And we can actually see how many charge cycles that each battery is gone, and a charge cycle is considered a 100% charge. So
Okay.
for example, if you went for a ride today, depleted the battery 50%, you plugged it in tonight, you went for another ride tomorrow, you rode it 50%, drained battery 50%, excuse me, that's considered one charge cycle. I can tell you that they're telling us over 500 charge cycles. Now, the approximate mileage, I can tell you because we run these on our rental bikes, the external 400-watt battery, we will see, depending on rider weight, temperature, and terrain, a 400-watt battery, and depending on how they ride it, we're going to kind of go through the console a little bit, depending on the level of assist, we are seeing usage anywhere from 25 to 65 miles range per charge. So with that being said, I can tell you last year we had a couple of e-bikes in our rental fleet that were somewhere 12, 13, 1,400 miles, and they only had, I think the most had like 21 and a half charge cycles.
Oh, wow.
So battery life, overall battery life is pretty substantial for the average person. The other thing that comes into play with battery life is battery care. Battery care, what we mean by that is a lot of people that reside here in Door County may not be here 12 months out of the year, or they may not have the luxury of putting the bike in a controlled environment. The bike can sit outside in a shed, non-heated building, so forth, but they just recommend to remove the battery, keep the battery in a controlled environment, and not exposing the battery to super cold temperatures or super high temperatures.
Okay.
The other thing too is that what Bosch recommends is
Like
that,
typical battery. I mean, think
Yes,
of any
typical
battery.
battery,
Don't throw it outside, obviously.
Yep.
Just keep it safe.
and what Bosch also recommends is that when you put this up to store for the off season, you don't have to top it off. If it has 30, 40, 50% charge, it's perfectly fine. The other big thing is that they recommend is don't leave the battery plugged in for a full long period of time.
Oh, okay.
Meaning, if you take off for 2-3 months, just don't leave the battery plugged in for that whole period. There is a thermal protection unit in the battery and the charger that protects the battery against that, but there's always that small risk of something failing. So that's a little bit about battery life and battery care.
What's the furthest that anyone's taken an e-bike that you know of, at least from here?
We had a couple of customers, a couple back in June that came in about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, picked up the e-bikes that we rent, rode to Washington Island, rode around all Washington Island. They came back, they put on 67 miles or something like that.
Wow.
And still had about 20% left on the battery.
Wow.
So
Cool.
the capacity is there. The other thing too is that what Bosch recommends to us and to tell the people is that you got the power, use it, but in order to get the maximum efficiency out of the battery, you should still ride it like a regular bike. Make sure you're using the shift, just don't put it in the hardest gear, and use the 4 levels of assist on the console. So that's a little bit about the battery care. Some features of the Bosch system. When it comes to the console and a little bit with the motor, the Bosch has a couple of different consoles, which is this portion on the bike. This happens to be the Purion, is their most popular unit. And some of the features on the Purion are the levels of assist. And to power the unit up, there's the power button right on top, which powers it up and brings it up 0, 0 and the word off. And what that means is that the unit is on. The word off means that there's no assist, but the unit is on. It's 100% you. So there's no assist at this point.
Mm-hmm.
To help you with the assist, you hit the plus button. We'll take you to Eco. Eco, they tell us it's approximately 50% of the assist. So what that means is that it will help you 50% of whatever you're doing is the bike's going to help you. So you hit the plus button again, we'll take you to Tour. That's approximately 100% of assist. Click it again, is Sport is 150, and then click it again, being Turbo, that's the highest level of assist, is going to be approximately 220% of assist. Once again, This is a class 1 bike. This will assist you out to 20 miles an hour. It'll go faster, but it's all you over 20. Now, if you don't want that much help, you hit the minus button, and that takes you to the word sport and starts toggling you back down those 4 levels of assist all the way to the word off. So that's the Bosch system. They generally have 4 levels of assist, anywhere from 50 to 220-ish%. And on the Purion display, not only does it have a list or the assist levels, it also does give you a couple other features. One of them is by holding down the minus button, will take you to, I'm just going to roll back this instructional cellophane on the outside here, will give you your bike computer. And what that means is that it can kind of give you some information on how far you rode for each trip. That's what the trip means. You can also reset it by holding down the plus and minus button for approximately 2 seconds. That will zero that trip computer back out so you can keep track of each ride.
Oh, and a little speedometer on there too.
Yep, it does give your miles on there also. And then if you hold the minus button in once again, will take you to your total. What your total is the total miles you go for the life of the bike. The next feature is a pretty cool feature, is the range function. And what the range function will tell you is once we put it in a particular mode, eco, this will be eco, which is your least amount. This is a 500-watt battery. It will pre-calculate how many miles you have left on this particular charge in this particular mode. So if you increase the mode or the assistance to tour, which is more help, you'll see that that range number drops, and you go to sport, it'll actually drop some more, but it'll at least give you a pre-calculated number to give you an idea of how far you have left to ride in this particular battery charge on this particular mode, so that you don't ride too far and you get stuck without any battery.
Yeah.
Another feature that it has, if you hit the minus button here, will take you back to the display where it will tell you all the time which level of assist you're in. You hit the minus button, again, takes you back to your trip computer. So it does have a bike computer built into it, along with a feature that will tell you approximate range that you have left on your charge to kind of give you an idea how far you can go.
That's
so
great.
that you don't run out of battery. A lot of these, oops, I'm sorry.
I know one thing that you should never do is have your assist on when you start pedaling.
Wait, will you repeat that?
You should never, oh, this is for me. I should never have my assist on when I start, because it kind of jerks you.
Well, you do get that sensation if it is
Yeah.
on, and there's nothing saying that you can't, but it does give you that little sensation. It gives you that
Yeah.
little boost right off the bat.
Yeah.
That's more of a personal opinion if you're comfortable or not.
Yeah,
comfortable with it.
yeah.
What questions did you have, Janine?
No, let him keep going.
Okay.
Because I'm learning, I have had mine for almost 4 years, and I'm learning a lot more today. So this is
Sure.
good.
So a lot of the e-bikes come equipped with lights for either daytime or nighttime safety. You can also operate that from the display by holding the plus button in for approximately 2 seconds. We'll turn on your headlight.
Oh, okay.
And
Very
tail
good.
light.
Oh, very good.
And then obviously to turn it off, you hold the plus button in for 2 seconds. That will hold it. That will turn those units off. The nice thing about the Bosch system is that you can actually go into the settings and turn it so that you can either manually turn the lights on and off, or you can have the lights go on and off whenever the unit is on. So just kind of like your car where you get the daytime visibility running lights, you have that same function here. And one more cool feature of the Bosch system is they offer a walk assist. And what the walk assist is, if you want, we can just back up. I can show you in the open floor here, is obviously e-bikes are heavier. And if you need to push the bike up a ramp or up a hill for some reason, they offer a walk assist. And to activate that, you hit the bottom button and then you hit the plus button. And as you see, the pedals are turning and the bike walks itself. So you're not having to push this heavy bike up a hill, up a ramp, whatever it may be.
Oh, and then sorry, how much did this one weigh? The other one was 55. What was this one?
This bike actually comes in very close to, I believe it's like 56 with this one.
Okay.
The one model below it with the external battery a little bit smaller comes in, I believe, a couple pounds lighter.
Okay.
But most of it is in the battery. And then also we could talk a little bit about drive units, because Bosch does make several different drive units in either class 1. They do only make one class 3 drive unit, but they make different class 1 drive units. And basically we can go over here and I can show you that on a, or I can show you that on this way. We'll put it back in the rack. And the features that the Bosch unit have, as you can see by our chart here, the different units or drive units. Your base model will be the active line, which once again will be your basic motor, 20 miles an hour. And then you
Do
go.
you have this on your website by chance, or you can just come down to the shop and take a look.
Sure.
If you can't see it online, come down
Sure.
to the shop and take a look.
So as you go up in the drive units, for example, the base model, which would be, for example, on the Verve 2, which has the base unit on it, you go up to the Verve 3, actually has the Active Line Plus unit. And what that means is that that's one step up in the motor, still a class 1 motor at 20 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
But the big difference is if you look at the torque settings, it's a little bit torqueier, so it's a little bit sportier. A lot of people comment that they come in here and say, boy, Stretch, this thing feels faster, but it's really not. But what they're seeing is that it's a little bit sportier motor, a little bit torqueier, so it's a little bit peppier, a little bit livelier motor per se. And then you'll see as you go up, they do offer 2 other ones in the 20 mile an hour, and then they make a 28 mile an hour. When you get into the CX line is where they put it on some of the mountain bikes, and it's a little bit torqueier yet. They also have some cool features for e-mountain bikes, which unfortunately I don't have any in the store today to show you, but that's kind of another little interesting up and coming part of our industry, and the e-industry is e-mountain bikes. So I think
The prices come way down from when I looked at them first.
the prices, have come down.
Yeah,
They-
they're still high, but.
Yes, and that's part of, I think, why here in the United States, I call it a little bit of culture shock.
Yes.
In Europe, e-bikes have been in Europe for many, many years, and it's uncommon, or I should say, it's very common for people in Europe. I've had them in the store that when we're not in a COVID situation, that I have a number of people that have come from Europe and they rent e-bikes, and they come in and they say, Stretch, I spent $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 on an e-bike, but that's your car. Where here in the United States, we're kind of getting over a little bit of that culture sticker shock, where people are realizing they're getting a chance to try them and they truly work, and we're finding more and more people using them for more than just recreational activity, whether it's transportation, exercise, recreation, however it may be. So obviously, as it becomes more popular, prices are coming down and technology is getting better, just like every other electronic component that's made.
Now, it would be really nice if you could pedal and that charge the battery. Is that ever going to happen?
So actually, that's kind of old technology.
Okay.
Some of the earlier generations, and there's still a few companies out there that still offer a regen factor.
Okay.
Your regen factors will generally be based out of your rear hub, not in your cranks. I haven't heard of any crank-based motor that have the regen factor. Hub-based, yes, but it goes back to, once again, where you see the maximum amount of regen is if you're going down that big hill where you had a prolonged period of time where you were just coasting, where it had a chance. And here in the Midwest, we don't have a lot of that situation. I mean, if you went out east or out west where you had a big mountains where you were descending for quite a long period of time, that's where you'd see the most benefit. And I think that's why you don't see as
Lost sound.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Shoot. Now we're back.
we're back.
We got sound again. So I guess we.
so
We
maybe
don't know where we lost.
I'll
No, I think we lost it. What she had asked about exercise on bikes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll touch real briefly about it. That's the nice thing about class 1, class 2, or class 3 bikes, is that you still have to pedal the bike in order for it to work. We're seeing more and more people that may have gotten out of cycling for pre-existing conditions, that love to ride, but they might have some pre-existing conditions, or maybe they've gotten to the age where they just don't like hills and nobody likes hills. Or there's couples or groups of people that want to ride together that maybe just don't have the comparable capabilities or abilities. So it kind of levels the playing field so that everybody can kind of ride together as a family or husband and wife or pair or whatever the situation may be.
So why would you get an e-bike and not a moped?
Well, the big thing is that when you start looking at mopeds, obviously it goes back to that throttle concept. And I think that that's why so many states have adopted that class 1, class 2, class 3. I mean, there's definitely a need for a throttle bike out there, but you still have to pedal, you still have to get exercise. It depends how you want to use the bike and what you want out of the bike.
Okay, so you've seen your sales really go up over the years. So the e-bike has increased in popularity. How do people get them? Do they come in here? Do they have to order them? Is the shipment, are they available? Can you kind of tell us about what's going on in the industry?
So we're in a very trying time in our industry because of the whole COVID, and a multitude of other industries are unique times, just like everything else going on in the world. So with that being said, my supply is low right now. We're kind of at the end of the season, but e-bikes and bikes in general are very difficult to get. I'm ramping up. I was this morning busy with my preseason orders. So kind of to sidestep your question, I have a bunch of bikes on order now. I have names that people are interested in that I'm going to contact when they come available. But I'm really ramping up for a strong spring because e-bikes are here. They're not going anywhere. It's kind of the hotbed or kind of the high point in our industry. It's a very popular portion and a very portion of our industry that there's a ton of interest.
Okay, so what would a person be, how much would they be spending on a bike?
So, I mean, you can find e-bikes online. I've seen them for $700, $800 to $1,000. I just caution you about that just because of I've seen a number of those price point bikes, and it's just like a lot of other things is you get what you pay for. When you look at those bikes, and if that's what you can afford, that's what you can afford, that's great, get you out on a bike. But I've seen some issues where serviceability, getting parts, replacement parts are very difficult, if at all available. Here in the bike industry, you're seeing probably that threshold around $1,200, $1,500 is kind of the base point on something. For example, your rear hub based motor, this bike right here starts at the $1,500 price point. That's kind of the base price point where we're starting at. It's still something that you can get parts for. It's still something that you can plug in, do a diagnostic check on the e-stuff. You can still service the e-stuff. You can still get parts for it. That's the critical thing about it. But it's just like anything else. You get what you pay for.
Okay. And what about like someone selling their bike, their e-bike? What would you, for a used bike, what should you be really aware of? Is it the battery, right?
Well, obviously, the e portion, because a lot of the other stuff on e-bikes, the normal bicycle stuff is stuff that you can go to any bike shop, get it fixed, get it repaired. It's that e portion that may make it a little bit interesting. I would strongly recommend if you're going to buy something used, try to buy something name brand, something that's still current in the industry, something that can be serviced. Shimano, Bosch, Yamaha, you can all plug those items in to see if there's any firmware issues or if there's any error codes. I don't want to go into too much great detail, but the Bosch is really, you can get an informational overload. You can see how many charge cycles, you can see ambient maximum temperature, minimum temperature. You can see, actually they break it down to a pie chart on how much you ride in eco, turbo, and so forth. So there's really, on the Bosch system, a very in-depth diagnostic tool that we can tell you what the bike has been through. When we sell all our rentals, we go ahead and print out that diagnostic report to the customer, and so they can see how many miles the bike's got on it, how many times the battery's been charged, so yeah, you just got to be careful what you buy. If you're going to buy used, there's nothing wrong with it. Just make sure that you're aware of what you're buying and it's something that can be serviced in case something is wrong.
Well, I know Consumer Report just had a great article comparing the bikes, and I know Truck came out up there, and I think like Brad was down there. I mean, so reading a Consumer Report, and I can put it on with our video.
Yeah.
I can put that article in there. It was really helpful. It explains everything and rates it. So,
Sure.
that would be a good.
Yeah. Did you want to ask a final question? We should look at Facebook and
Yeah.
see.
I think I'm glad to see they're getting popular in the U.S. I spent a year in Germany, and if you're 60, you get an e-bike. I mean, it's what you do in Europe. As I said, they use it as their car, like you were saying. But hey, I love driving. I use mine to go to work.
Yeah.
I don't have to fight traffic because it's easier to ride a bike than a car.
Well, and you've got a big hill to go up.
And have a hill. And I love going up hills. My favorite hill is down at the marina in Egg Harbor. And then I put on the throttle or put on my assist to the highest, and I just go up so fast. And people look at me like, because they don't know it's me. And it's so much fun for me, but I love it. I love not having to do a hill.
So Julie had a question that came in via the chat. I'm going to check Facebook.
Okay.
Her question was city tires versus fat tires. Will you hold on while I go check the Facebook?
Okay, city tires versus.
So depending on where you're going to ride, you know, your fat tire will give you a little bit more comfortable ride. If you're going to ride off-road, and what we mean by off-road is on the mountain bike trails, or maybe you're going to ride it in the winter where fat bikes were originally designed, then a fat bike definitely does make sense. Otherwise, depending on where you're going to ride, you may prefer a little bit smoother, a little bit less rolling resistance, a little bit more efficient pedaling and rolling motion out of that smoother, more quote-unquote city tire.
So are these two different tires then? This looks a lot larger.
So it's a different size altogether. It's still kind of in that same class where you're going to ride it on the blacktop, concrete, crushed limestone. The reason why they put a little bit wider tire on is to add a little bit more comfort to the ride.
Okay.
When you generally go to a wider tire, you're going to have a little bit lower pressure in the tire, and it's going to be a little bit more comfortable.
What I like about my e-bike is it fits me as a short person.
Yep.
And so when you purchase an e-bike, you're purchasing. They have women's size.
Well, actually, that's kind of funny you brought that up because they're getting away from being gender specific. They're called step through or step over now. That's what we're being told to talk about because we're seeing, because of the demographics, or some of the demographics that are buying these bikes are the aging demographics. And as we get older, it may be more difficult, whether you're a male or female, to swing your leg over and clear the rack and so forth. We're finding that we are selling more step-through bikes than step-over bikes, just because of that ease of getting on and off the bike. I can tell you it's substantially more towards the step-through versus the step-over. I would say
love my step-through.
For us, male or female that's buying them, we're probably selling 5-to-1, step through versus step over.
There was another question that came in. It was, do you shift it like a normal bike, 21, 24 speed, or how many shifting speeds?
So most of these bikes, not all of them, but most of them are going to have one sprocket. Unfortunately, you can't see them the best because they'll have chain guards. Actually, what you can do is pull this one out, or maybe if you want to just walk around, you can see a side profile of this. So most of them will have one sprocket in the front, but it will give you 8, 9, 10, 11 gears in the back. And yes, on this type of bike, class 1 or class 3, you will shift the derailleur just like any other bike, whether it's a rapid fire shifter by either pushing or pulling the triggers, or if it's a twist grip, you would twist your wrist.
You know, I never use mine anymore. Is that bad?
What, your shifter?
Yeah.
You just toggle up and down
just
on the assist. And see, there's nothing wrong with it. You got it, you might as well use it. But if you're looking to get the maximum efficiency out of the battery and battery use, you should shift and use your levels of assist. That's what all the manufacturers are doing. But
I've gotten lazy, I guess.
I can tell you, you're not the only one that does that. When we plug our bikes in, our rental bikes, we've seen more of the turbo level than a lot of people, just because they sit there and they toggle up and toggle down on the assist.
You probably forget all about
you got the power, you might as well use it. So why not?
Well, should we go out and
Yeah,
check out a
Jess,
bike?
Why don't you, Jess
Okay.
has never tried an e-bike,
All right.
so we're gonna have her
Let's go.
try it and see what she thinks.
Selling Michigan jobs to China. Now the Biden family is selling out our country directly to the
Oh, hey, look at, there's some people riding up on them now.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of your e-bike?
Oh,
They
you
own it.
They own
She's
'em.
I love them.
okay. See, I have one too.
So Jess, if you want to just have it on the white ones on the top two shelves are the medium large, the blue and silver ones on the bottom shelf are small mediums. They are required to rent here at Nordor.
Alright. Are you seeing what you're showing him?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at her bike here. So you have a Tony and you have a Trek.
Tony is a Trek.
It is a Trek. Okay.
So the batteries are the same. The Shimano gear system, all that's the same.
Okay.
Now this does have a suspension.
And you love it?
You
love it.
I like the color, like
Sit up on it.
Oh.
when I bought
You
it.
want to step
Yeah.
through.
Okay, we're gonna look at Jess now, stepping through.
Oh, I like a step through.
And if you want to turtle up and try the saddle height to start with, and then once you come back, we'll go through the e-assist. And you tell me if the seat's too high or too low or pretty good. See, it's okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so this bike is obviously a class 1 bike, and we'll go through it real quick once again. You still have to shift and pedal this bike just like any other bike. Large levers in front of your brakes. The shifter on the right side. Pull with your index finger. The little red indicator goes towards the higher the number's harder. Push with your thumb goes back towards the lower the number will make it easier to pedal.
Okay.
And shift while pedaling only. Now, once again, this is the period display. Power up. Power is on top of the console. You hit the power button. It comes up 0, 0 and the word off. That means that the unit is on with no assist. To increase the level of assist, you hit the plus button. We'll take you to eco. That's 50%. Tours 100%. Sports 150. Turbo's 220%.
Okay.
Now, if you don't want that much help, yep, you just toggle down that negative button or the minus button. Will take you down those 4 levels of assist all the way to the word off.
And do you recommend starting in the off position and then?
You can, if you
Okay.
want, or you can start off in eco. So what I will have you do is, if you want to either walk it or ride it down in front of the store on the church or on the sidewalk into the church lot, take a couple laps around the parking lot next
Okay.
door, play around with the e-assist and shifting, then I want you to go up the hill.
Okay. All right.
Okay. She is a big biker, so we'll, this will be good. This will be good. So I'm going to walk over and get a picture of Jess.
You can probably walk through the ditch. I think it's
Okay,
fine.
I'm going to do that. Okay, it looks like she's going to go up the hill now. So all of you out there, you should come here and try out a bike, and because they have their sale, I know, starting in October for their used ones. And then I know I've bought a truck here, not an e-bike, but wow, look at her go on the hill. I hope she comes back. She's out of sight. She better be back soon. Well, I'm going to walk back and see if we have any questions.
I'm seeing a hand up. Is that you, Julie? Oh,
Unfortunately, all these companies have gone away from paper literature like there was years ago. Everything is unfortunately online. I mean, I could show you, I have a dealer book I could show you, but unfortunately I don't have anything to hand out. They just don't supply us with that.
But if I could go online
Oh, yeah.
with the information.
Yep, if you go to trekbikes.com and you go to Townie Go, Townie Go. Yep. That you'll see that bike there. They actually make, I was just ordering some more this morning. They make 3 different models, you know.
And can you get about
so if you're ever up in Fish Creek and you need to service your bikes, at Nordor, they have all kinds of tools here for you. Oh, Jess is back. I better get back to Jess.
Yeah, that was great.
So Jess is back.
That hill was nothing.
I know, wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
That's my favorite part of an
Yeah,
e-bike.
and then over here, just like cranking it up, you just feel like
Yeah.
you're cruising.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, should we see if we have any more questions?
Sure. All right. Okay, we're gonna walk in and check out the computer here.
I'm gonna have to write one of those.
I put somebody's tablet over there.
Oh, that's me. Yeah.
Oh no. I don't know what happened.
Still, Julie's on there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Let's see if we have any questions on Facebook.
There, yeah.
No
Nope.
questions.
Okay.
Well, maybe.
So I think, Julie's trying to answer. Can we unmute her?
Oh, Julie, you can talk.
But she's,
No, she can unmute herself.
oh, unmute yourself.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, there she goes. All right, Julie. Okay. Would you like to ask Stretch something? Oh, now she's quiet.
Oh, you're muted again.
Now
Yep, there.
you're
Now
here?
you're.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So you answered my question about the tires, but I've really been doing a lot of research on e-bikes, and I know if you get a higher voltage wattage on your battery, it's more expensive, and I just don't know which, what voltage would be right for me to use. I don't want to not, have enough voltage, but if I don't have to spend the money, too.
Okay, so how far do you think you're going to want to ride?
Well, too, I've been reading, it's not even the distance, it's how much you use it, even with hills or not. But I would be like maybe, 30 miles, 40 max, but with 1 or 2 hills, but nothing more than that. That would be like maximum.
So my suggestion would be a 400 watt battery would be probably sufficient. Obviously, if you went to a 500 watt, you're going to get 20% more capacity. And unfortunately, as you go up in the wattage, the price goes up, obviously.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right, the price, but the higher wattage doesn't give you more power, does it?
No, it just gives you larger capacity. To kind of give you an idea, if you want, I can talk to you briefly about it. So on some of these internal batteries, like I showed you on the first bike, if you look at these studs right here, there's technology now that you can, what they call piggyback a battery. So this bike comes with a 500 watt battery. You could bolt another 400 or 500 watt battery on that to give you further range. It won't give you any more speed or any more power, but it's going to give you a longer range. And for example, if you went with, to kind of give you a brief overview, if you went to a bike that had a 625 watt battery here, and you took a 500 watt battery like that and placed it and piggybacked it, they're telling us that you're going to see somewhere in the 150-mile range
Wow.
out of those.
Not doing that. My knees
Well,
wouldn't work.
You can. And I have to tell you, you do not want to run out of battery. The bikes are heavy, and riding it back without the battery going is not a good idea. I've heard horror stories of people saying, "Oh, I ran out," but I've never. Mine was supposedly, they said 4 hours on mine. I've never done 4 hours biking with it. It's more for me getting to and from Egg Harbor and getting to my job. I have my other bike that I use more for fun because it's lighter. I can take it places. I don't like to, oh, we were going to talk about this. I don't like taking my e-bike anywhere because it's so heavy for me.
We should have that conversation.
Yeah. So Strauss is going to talk a little bit about that.
But let me just add to that, if you don't mind, is that I don't know if you were on when you heard my story about those couple people that rented and went to Washington Island for the day.
Right.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
So to kind of give you an idea, a 400-watt battery, kind of a baseline, you'll easily get 50, 60 miles. Now, if you rode that thing in turbo all the time, and you're going to obviously drastically reduce that. So it sounds like, from what you briefly described to me, if you think you're going to be a 25, 30 mile an hour ride, you rode that thing in turbo, it's got a 400-watt battery, you might as well use it. But to kind of give you an idea, do you need to go to a 500-watt battery? From what you described to me, probably is not a necessity, I guess is what I'm getting. It's just if you want to have that capacity to do longer rides at a higher level of assist, it will definitely get you further. But the price does go up.
Right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so talk a little bit about transport of those bikes.
So very common question that people have. Obviously, a lot of people have different racks, and they have racks for maybe their non-e-bikes. So I just caution you, because a lot of your hanging bike racks, where your rack had two posts that come out and your bike can hang on it, whether it's a strap rack where it straps to the back of your car, or you have a receiver hitch rack, those are generally going to be 35 pounds per bike limit. Obviously, e-bikes and all the manufacturers recommend removing the battery when you transport them. Those types of racks won't work. So strongly suggest, if and when the time comes, get an e-bike specific rack. A lot of these rack manufacturers over the last couple of years have made adjustments to their racks to raise the limits on their bike racks. But definitely, if you have a rack where the bike hangs, that's a big no-no. It just doesn't have the capacity. So what we're seeing is most of where all the rack manufacturers are going for either e-bikes or some of the other bikes is, if you want, we can take a walk over to give you an idea. Is they go to what they call a receiver rack, but a tray style rack where the bike sits in the tray. And no matter if you have a step through or a step over frame, men's or ladies, the bike will always sit normal. But they're evolving these racks where a lot of your basic model racks like this are up to like 50 pounds per bike, but they do make E-specific, which will extend that weight capacity out to either 60 or 80 pounds per bike. So there is racks that are much beefier, much more robust to take these heavier e-bikes. And unfortunately, the only racks that are going to be made like this are going to be ones that are going to be receiver mount racks, just like you see here. But you would need a hitch on the back of your car. But that's the last thing you want, is to have your investment in your e-bike of $2,000, $2,500, $5,000, $6,000 coming off and laying alongside the road. So definitely look at a e-bike specific so you don't have any problems transporting your e-bike.
Well,
Worst case scenario, if you got room inside your car, you can always put it inside.
okay.
In the car,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to hang it. Can you put a rack on the back, like one of those kids, what are those? children?
Trailers?
Yeah.
Yep, you can.
Burleys or whatever?
We do have hitches on. So most of those e-bikes will take a standard Burley hitch or chariot hitch where you can hook a trailer. It's becoming more and more popular for our rentals. Also, we are able to put tag-alongs where it's a third wheel attachment on, just depending on frame size and saddle height. But yes, all those normal attachments that go on regular bikes can go onto an e-bike to pull trailer, cargo, pet trailers. That's
Well,
another
that's the
thing.
thing.
my last dog, I was able to put him in the front part. He stayed really nice.
Yep.
This guy jumped up and had my first e-bike accident. So I need to get a full
pet trailer. Yep.
something to put
Yep.
him in.
But no, all that stuff can be added to an e-bike.
So last question, how many types of e-bikes do you have on display to look at right now?
Well, unfortunately, I believe I only have between e-road, e-hybrid, there's 4 in the store. But once we start getting back capacity, I will probably have in excess of 10, 12 different models.
Okay, great.
Well, thanks so much,
No
Trish,
problem.
for
Thank you.
teaching us all about e-bikes, and I can't wait to get my next one. As soon as the battery runs out, I'll have to ride to work more. Well, thanks again.
No problem.
And
Thank you so much. And you guys have locations in Fish Creek and Sturgeon Bay. Very good. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.